What's up, Nerfherders? Welcome back to the N.A.P. Even with that long ass intro countdown, we're still the shortest live show countdown I've ever seen out of anything premiering. How's it going, guys? We are back. We are here to talk Avatar. We're here to talk, I don't know, the general holidays and to catch up with everybody.
Absolutely.
Josh, how are we doing today?
We're doing. It's been a week. How was your Christmas? How was your holiday weekend?
I didn't do shit.
That sounds great, though.
I didn't do a damn thing, and it was awesome. I had, I had like the general stuff that you would expect over the holidays, but like I didn't try. Like I took like a good long period where I didn't have any photos coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I had some family stuff, and that was like the end of it. Like it was family stuff, and then sitting around eating and doing nothing, and it was
great.
amazing. It was amazing. It was exactly what I wanted to do over that holiday, and it worked out great. What about you?
For you. So we had some family things on Saturday. We didn't go out of town like we normally do to see some families. We just kind of stayed in town, and it was good. We got all of our family stuff out of the way on Saturday, and Sunday we had Chinese for lunch and went out and saw Avatar again in the evening, and it was a good time.
So how many times did you actually go and see it?
We've seen Avatar twice now. We saw it opening night in IMAX 3D, and then I usually take my mom out to see a movie on Christmas Day, and she wanted to see that, but she doesn't do well with 3D, so we went to Dolby Cinema for the second.
To be fair, neither do I. 3D did not hit me. I mean, I don't have any problems with it. Like I've seen movies in 3D, but I don't know. Like the appeal just didn't get to me crazy like a lot of people did.
Well, she gets sick with 3D, and honestly, the only 3D movie I'll watch is a James Cameron 3D movie because it's actually filmed in 3D and it's made with special 3D cameras, where most other 3D movies are post-production filters, and it's normally nonsense. Hence why the 3D TVs are not around anymore. They had a surge in 2009, 2010 after Avatar, thinking that everybody else was going to use his cameras, and then people just used filters, and nobody really cared for it after that. So
did not really stick around after that point, much to my joy, because I worked in the cable industry inside people's homes during the 3D TV rush, and got a lot of complaints about TV quality around that time. I was like, oh, I'm sorry your local cable company doesn't give you 3D programming, but I don't know what the fuck you were expecting.
Right. I remember you could even buy like glasses, but like I remember the glasses were so expensive. They're like $200 a pair, and they look flimsy as hell.
And they were the cheapest material I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, like they wouldn't even hold up like a PlayStation controller or something.
Oh, they're essentially the glasses that you get in the theater now, like the cheapo, shitty single film 3D glasses that you get in the theater. And it was the exact same thing that they were charging a gajillion dollars to get for out of the TVs. Yeah, Best Buy in their racket. Way to go! I'm sorry, Best Buy.
Oh, it wasn't just Best Buy.
You were not alone.
It was the TV companies.
No,
Best Buy just sold their shit.
It was bad. It was bad. It was a weird time. Well, speaking of weird times, we're in that weird end of the year lull where there isn't a whole hell of a lot going on right now, other than, I don't know, basic American commercialism at this point, really. But so the holiday season is always tends to be. I guess the only movies that really tend to come out are there's like some major blockbusters that try and put themselves right around Christmas time or just before the holiday. And we're now in that period where like we're in like that last week of the year where nothing comes out, nothing happens. Not a huge amount of news in the industry. It's pretty quiet. And then we're going to bust into January, and we're going to get all the movies that like the producing companies and all that stuff think we're going to bomb anyway. So like, fuck it, we're going to throw it into January, which is generally when some of like the worst movies of the year come out. But thankfully that isn't the case. We're kind of I mean, we've been doing pretty good so far. 2022 was kind of like a weird year for movies, but I think for the most part, it came out okay.
2023 looks like the first full year back. Like March is stocked with movies coming out.
Yeah.
So 2022 was a pretty good year, but 2023
For Marvel,
looks
it was
like
horrible.
a little bit more. Yeah.
2022 was a horrible year for Marvel films, and that was probably the most noteworthy part of like the cinematic world, is that Marvel dropped the ball in a lot of ways in 2022.
But they put out a lot. In fact,
they did.
We're not going to do it this episode, but our first episode in January, we're going to do a recap of 2022. We're going to look back at our favorite films, that are not so favorite films, and there was a lot of comic book movies. I mean, there was a lot of comic book properties that came out, but a lot of comic book theatrical movies, and we're going to rank them in our next episode. So come back for that whenever we have that.
I mean,
we just didn't have time to put that together tonight.
Probably next Monday. I'm saying, I was like, I'll be off work. I won't have anything to do that day. It'll work out.
That's
fine.
right. That's right. Me too. In fact, we should do it that day because that'll be the perfect day to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't drink anymore, so I'm not really concerned about a hangover or anything like that.
I drink plenty, so I'll do the drinking for you.
All right, good deal. Okay. Balanced out. Anyway, we are going to talk holiday stuff for a little bit, and then we'll bust into our Avatar review. And Josh, you kind of sent me the theme on this one, so I'm going to let you go first on how you want to kick this thing off here.
Well, I just thought, it's the holiday times. I thought it'd be fun to just talk about, our favorite holiday films from like classic holiday films, like films that we grew up on.
Yeah, like all the movies that are absolutely groundbreaking and are irreplaceable. And the only place where you can find such movies is obviously the Hallmark Channel.
Hey, now watch your mouth, because I'm actually going to bring up a Hallmark Channel movie. But I wouldn't say they're all groundbreaking, but I
wouldn't say any of them are. Like they know what they're making. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I just want to hear a couple of your classic films that you've watched consistently in your life based on younger years of Christmas, and then.
Right.
And then we'll talk about if there's any kind of like modern Christmas films that we want to mention, like, hey, in the last couple of years, I've really gotten used to this, and I suggest you see it. But let's start with the classic films first.
Well, so I don't know if they're classics for everybody. But,
sure, it's subjective, of course.
Home Alone 1 and 2 were always like a set of films that I would watch around Christmas time, mainly because when I was a kid, they were always on TV around that time. I mean, this is before the streaming era was out, and this was before this is when cable TV dominated whatever you were watching at that point in time.
For sure.
And Home Alone 1 and 2 were like the paramount of movies that young kids wanted to watch and adore at all times, because it was Home Alone. Like it was literally like, and honestly, like I can still go back and watch these movies as an adult and still enjoy them.
Sure.
Because they did such a good job of balancing out like the stuff that was strictly appealing to kids and the stuff that was like mature enough to where adults could be able to watch it and be like, okay, that's a laugh. Here we go. Like you start off watching as a kid, like loving watching those two just get absolutely destroyed. And then as an adult, you sit back and you watch them thinking, fuck, this is making my back hurt. and I mean, that's just like, it was great. Like it's a great time. And like,
do you have a favorite between these two? Because mine is Home Alone. 100%. Oh, really? Yeah. Mine is Home Alone 2. Mine is Home Alone 2, the non-Donald Trump cut. But otherwise, the
non-Donald Trump.
The TV cut where they usually cut out Donald Trump. But
honestly, the TV cut always had him in there from the ones that I saw.
Not the I grew up on a TV ripped VHS of Home Alone 2, and it never had that. And I remember the first time I saw it was either on a streaming service or somebody's house where they put it in, and I'm like, the hell is this?
There's a lot of shit here I don't remember seeing. What?
And the Donald Trump scene was one of them, and I'm like, this is not what. Do you have a different copy? And yeah, so I don't know what channel I was watching it on, but they never had that back then.
So I had a recording, and it was right around Christmas time, and it was on VHS that my parents had ripped off, and it had like the commercials were still intact at that point in time.
Yeah, those are the best.
And so there are a few Diamond company or Diamond store commercials just burned into my fucking brain. Those are the ones that come to mind right off the bat.
Honestly, I wish I still had some of those VHSs, because I would totally rip them and watch some of those movies with the commercials, because I would love to just go back in time and watch some of those commercials again.
But yeah, Home Alone 1 and 2. Like, I remember going through and like somebody had brought up a Reddit post or something like that, and it was talking about how there are no plot holes in Home Alone 1.
Okay.
And like every single detail that they were going back to, they were like, people kept on just refuting, like, nope, that is plugged like right here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody pointed out that there's a doghouse at the house, and I was like, we never see a dog, and it was like, well, in the opening dialogue she talks about putting a dog in a kennel, and it's a blink and you miss it line of dialogue. I'm just like it was to that degree, like they were pointing this shit out left and fucking right.
Yeah.
And then the whole theme about the dude, like the adult that Kevin like interacts with in both Home Alone 1 and 2 has like some sort of theme of like healing or repair or something like that.
Sure.
And the first one was the most prominent with Old Man Marley, where he's got a cut on his hand the first time he sees him when he's on his own. And each interaction that he has with him, like, it's in various stages of convalescence. Whereas at the very end of it, where he's interacting with him at the church, the wound is completely gone.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't even have a Band-Aid on it, or he doesn't even have it wasn't in the church, but at the very end of the film, spoiler alert, like he holds his hand up to wave at the kid and there's no wound there anymore. I was like, okay, there's like a weird background theme that he had thrown in there at the same time. And I was like, okay, there's a bunch of little things like, and it's not the type of movie that you would expect to watch and find something new every time.
Yeah.
Like, which, I mean, that's kind of run out at this point. Like it's not every single time you watch it, but yeah, with it being a yearly movie, like I can always like appreciate being able to go back to it, because it does take you to your childhood a little bit.
Yeah.
And the second one's great too. Like, I'm not going to knock that, but I identified with the first one way more because I had the movie for that one. I could always watch the whole thing. Yeah. Whereas for the second one, I had a ripped off VHS and I always had to watch these fucking commercials every time I watched it. So there's a little bit of a different experience.
So outside of the Home Alone films, I grew up on two other films that I'd watch consistently. One was A Wonderful Life. I love this film. It is as an adult, I realize it's much like darker than
it's a little fucked up.
I've registered as a kid.
It's not so much A Wonderful Life.
No, like, drives this dude to suicide. There's a great, I don't know if you watch SNL, but Austin Butler, the guy that played Elvis in that new Elvis movie, he was on SNL 2 weeks ago, and they did a black and white parody of It's a Wonderful Life, and he's like walking in the snow, and there's this angel trying to get him to like see the blessings in life, and he walks past a house and he sees this family and he's looking in the window, he's like, look at how wonderful their life is and look at their smiles, and then it turns to the family and the mom's like, there's a crazy guy looking through our window. And it's hilarious. It cracked me up so much. It was a well done skit, but I loved It's a Wonderful Life. I thought it was just a cool story. And
it's one of those timeless ones from that era.
Yeah. I've always gone back to it. It's just that film. It's just that film that I like. And I just, it was just a cool film. I like the concept of it really well. And then, speaking of Hallmark Channel movies, there was this movie, which is a Hallmark Channel movie with Olivia Newton-John, and I swear they could have just called it Mannequin: The Christmas Cut. And it's basically that. It's basically, I don't know why I fell for this movie as a kid, but I did. And it's like this single dad and his daughter, their mom died or something, and she spends her days at this mall and this department store, and the mom from Everyone Loves Raymond works there, but she's also like magical like witch or something like that. And so the girl like does a gift at the wishing well in the mall for a mom for Christmas, and she talks to this mannequin. She's weird, and all the kids make fun of her. And so Raymond's mom,
Rightly so.
yeah, Raymond's mom makes the mannequin come alive, and then that mannequin just shows up at the house like a week before Christmas, saying that she's like the maid that the dad forgot that he hired, and starts living with the family. And then the family falls in love with her. And then but at the stroke of midnight on Christmas, she has to go back to being a mannequin, and they have to find a way to keep her from being a mannequin. It sounds like a stupid movie, and it probably is, but I loved it as a kid, and I've watched it like every year since then. So
I mean, sometimes there's a movie that's just so good that's so bad that it's good.
Yeah,
and it's kind of hard to get away from. Like every single time somebody brings up Mannequin as a movie, though, like I can't help but think there was a Family Guy scene where they're doing one of their random cutaways, and somebody like Peter at one point he wants to watch the movie from The Ring, and somebody's telling him, it's like, no, if you watch that in 7 days or in 3 days or something like that, you'll die. And he puts it in. It's the scene on the motorcycle in Mannequin.
Oh yeah,
and the next scene is just him with his face all
with
like
his jaw and everything. Yeah.
And I can't help but laugh about that, because I remember seeing Mannequin finally at one point, and I was watching. I can't remember why I was watching it, but it was at a group. It was at a group watch or something like that. I think it was just like a horrible movie party or something like that. And I remember that being put on. And just fucking hating it the whole goddamn time.
And they made a sequel. Pretty sure there's a Mannequin 2.
Oh God. Yeah, is it a Mom for Christmas?
No, it's not, but it should have been. It should have been Mannequin 3, the Christmas movie, A Mom for Christmas. But it's not.
The only other one that I had, which I'm sorry I didn't tell you about beforehand, but was Die Hard. Die Hard is one that I started watching when I was like in my early 20s. And so I watch that one every year. Even though at Bruce Willis's roast, he came out and said that it's not a Christmas movie, but fuck him. Like it is a Christmas movie.
Fuck you, Bruce Willis. We don't have to listen to what you say. It definitely is a Christmas movie. It belongs in that genre. I'm not saying the rest of them are Christmas movies.
No, but I think if it's movie. You know what, I think if it's close close enough to where there's this much of a debate about it, it counts. It's like, because when you're talking about Christmas movies, you really don't have to ask if they're Christmas movies. Like you just kind of know. Like if somebody's asking you, it's like, is this a Christmas movie? Yeah, then the answer is yes.
I made that Die Hard hoodie this year. I should have worn that to match with this.
There you go.
Speaking of Die Hard and crossing over to kind of modern films, this is a film from this year that I suggest, and it's called Hawkeye. It's not called Hawkeye. I don't suggest that, even though Disney Plus is pushing people to watch it now. If you wanted people to watch Hawkeye during Christmas, you should have released it during Christmas, not in August. It was weird Hawkeye move. Wasn't good. I could complain about Hawkeye all day, but it's Violent Night. This movie is basically Die Hard, but John McClane is Santa Claus, and not only is he Santa Claus, he's a Viking Santa Claus, and it is crazy violent. And I know we had a violent Santa movie like a year or two ago called Fat Man with what's his face?
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. And that was kind of fun, but it wasn't that great. This movie is fantastic. And I missed seeing it at New York Comic Con. They did a screening of it on the Friday night. That's kind of their new thing. But I finally got to see it with Maddie last week, and it is a hell of a good time. It's a fun movie, and it's so
apparently this one's able to be rented now, and because I missed it in the theater, so I'm going to catch it on streaming now.
That's what we did. We rented it last week. Yeah. And it was worth the penny. I don't normally rent movies, but it was worth the penny, and I liked it. It was really good. David Harbour is fantastic, and it's violent and it's fun. So
I mean, I'll watch anything that David Harbour's in, even that horrible SVU episode that he's in. like, like anything that I see David Harbour and I'm like, oh, it's probably gonna be good.
He's a big man. He's a big man, and he loves doing characters. And he does this drunk, kind of bored with his life Santa who gets just like John McClane gets thrown into a situation, and it's like, does he leave or does he kill all the bad guys? And he chooses to kill all the bad guys, and it's fantastic. So highly recommend.
I'm gonna have to add that in.
Yeah,
I'm watching it soon. I'm watching it this week.
Do you have any modern, last like 10 years or so Christmas movies that you like?
Not really. Christmas movies aren't. I don't celebrate Christmas, so it kind of falls off for me, really. I don't know if the most recent version, the most recent remake of Home Alone is centered around Christmas, but I sure as shit ain't watching it.
Which one?
It looks terrible.
Disney's come out with so many.
Well, there was a remake this year recently, and it had Ellie Kemper in it and as one of the robbers.
And it wasn't a remake. Well, no, because it had characters from the original, like the cop.
Yeah, it was like a sequel. Yeah, but the cop was like Buzz. Yeah, I don't know if that one was Christmas oriented, but I like as soon as I saw the trailer for it, I was like, oh, this looks like garbage.
Yeah, a lot of people said that.
And then the reviews came out, and everybody's like, oh, this is garbage.
Yeah,
so
big surprise.
Big shock.
This isn't last 10 years, but this is definitely a more modern classic for.
Yeah. I guess Elf would probably be the best version.
This is a good movie. It's a funny movie. James Caan or Caan, whatever his name is. Caan. Yeah. Any other holiday films to mention before we? I just kind of wanted to do something before we get into Avatar.
Yeah, I didn't. So I played through the Miles Morales game, and that's actually centered around Christmas, which I thought was kind of funny. Or I guess it's centered around winter and Christmas and like
okay.
All that.
Okay.
So that was interesting.
I still need to finish the first one, but I have Miles downloaded. So
it was dramatically shorter than the first one. I was actually kind of disappointed at how much shorter it was.
I heard that. Do you think because they rushed it, or just it was just shorter?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I wonder if there were people who were complaining that the first one was too long, which is bullshit. Like I think it does a really good job. There weren't any parts of the story where you had to play as another character who didn't have superpowers and do all that boring shit. That was
I know. That's one of my most annoying things in the first game.
Yeah, they fixed that. Stuff. They didn't make you do that, so that was good. But I don't know. This one was a lot shorter, and the plot line was a lot more of a straight line in a predictable way, like whereas the first game was not quite like that. But yeah, it was snowing the whole time in the game. Or it was like winter time a lot in it, and there were some Christmas themes. I guess that's the closest that I got to a modern Christmas experience this year. Avatar was the big holiday thing for me this year, because that was also came out in Christmas when the original one came out. Kind of like, well, so I guess another set of modern films is the Harry Potter series. That one always seems to get played right around Christmas time, and it was actually part of HBO Max's streaming platform, and so we watched the first couple of those this year. And I don't think that they're strictly Christmas movies by any stretch of the imagination, but for some reason it's become a holiday tradition to start to watch not all of them, but at least a couple of them right around the holidays, right around like the end of December.
There's at least a couple of them that feature like a part of the movie is during Christmas. So yeah.
There's always at least one section. I mean, the first one was like the biggest one because they had like the gift exchange and all that shit. But that one, I caught one of them in the background of doing a bunch of photo editing and stuff like that. But yeah, even when I would go home one of the Harry Potter movies would be playing, and they're always throwing them on cable TV around this time too. So
nice.
Yeah, I guess that kind of counts. I don't know, like not necessarily a Christmas movie, but like a Christmas tradition sort of thing.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely, that counts. Sure. All right.
Yeah,
well,
other than that, like I mean, we don't have a lot for this episode. Like kind of like we said, there isn't a whole lot going on right now. We're in that weird
other than Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar is a big one.
We even tried to find like movie news, and all the movie news is
all about Avatar. It was like everything that I found. I mean, like we were saying, like it's kind of too late at this point to talk like all the DC changes, and a lot of the DC changes were just, hey, this isn't happening now. That was essentially the end of it.
In fact, I'm getting annoyed by any DC news. Like we still have 3 more films coming out in the DC universe. We've got Shazam 2, we've got Aquaman 2, and we got The Flash. Those are all movies.
Flash is still kind of up in the air at this point now. It sounds
Flash is coming out. It's coming out. If you've noticed, we've had no Ezra Miller stories since like August, and I think somebody
really
DC,
hard to keep shit quiet around him.
Yeah, they grabbed him, they threw him in a padded bunker, and they said, "You ain't coming out to the red carpet," and then you're probably not coming out for that.
I wouldn't be surprised to not see him there. Like I would not be at all surprised.
He's got to do some. I mean,
he's got to do some soul searching, bro.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough time for a redemptive arc for him, honestly, unless he comes out in like March or April of next year and been like, I have spent the last 8 months in rehab. I have done all my soul searching.
No other way.
No other way. It's gonna happen. I almost would bet money on it. But they still got 3 more DC films to come out that aren't a part of the path forward. Like we have to get past that. So we are multiple years away from whatever James Gunn and what's his face Savron are coming up with. And it just pisses me off, the need for people to like dig in and report on every little rumor they hear, because it's behind the scenes, it's behind the doors, and we're years out. I don't want to hear about what they're talking about now, because it's not going to come to fruition for another 3 or 4 years. Give them some time, for the love of God. And it doesn't help that James Gunn is fucking responding to everybody's tweet on Twitter. Like, right. Stop. Like that, if you want to be the Kevin Feige of DC, be the Kevin Feige. You know what Kevin Feige doesn't do? He doesn't respond to anybody on Twitter.
Thing.
And I love that James Gunn is about the fans and he's genuine, but people are taking his tweets out of context. They're trying to make breaking news around everything he tweets, and it's not helping. Like, just give them some space. If they're there to recreate the wheel with DC, let them do that. Let them be themselves and do that, and then we'll reap the benefits in a couple of years. It's just annoying me.
It's that level of coverage that's kind of turned it into a situation where DC really can't do anything right at this point, because like they're going to blow up about it no matter what, because bagging on DC makes headlines. Like it
does.
But I think a big contributor to it also at the same time is just like, again, we're in like sort of the end of the year. It's kind of a slow news time. Mm-hmm. These websites and these publications still have to put stories out there. Like, dude, there was one of the gaming article sites that I'll get suggested posts from every now and then, did an article about a God of War Ragnarok player accidentally killed an Odin's raven when he recalled the Leviathan axe. I was just like, what? Really? What? And like I clicked into the article, and there was a scroll for it. I was just like, this can't be that big of a deal. This has got to be like a remarkable thing or something like that. But that was exactly the response that they were hoping for. They were going to be like, oh, I hope somebody clicks on this thinking like there's no way that's all this story is about. That's all fucking story was. But I was just like, what are we going? Like, that's just how slow things are right now. Thankfully we have Avatar to talk about.
Yeah.
Because that actually fills in our time. Well, I mean, spoiler free, obviously, but you should kick things off. You saw it more than I did.
You want to get in there? Okay, yeah. Let's
Yeah,
talk about Avatar.
let's dive in there. Let's get in there.
We're gonna talk spoilers until we put the spoiler banner on the bottom. So if you don't see the spoiler banner, it's spoiler free.
But it's been a while, so I mean, I'm always late to the party. So if you haven't seen it by now, I mean, you probably aren't going to.
What did The Rock say? Did The Rock say he spent 13 years trying to get Black Adam made? Because I'm pretty sure he said that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they said 13 years ago. He was
talking about a long period of time trying to make this movie.
He said 13. I'm going to bring up that quote. 13 years ago, the studio might not have seen the value in Black Adam, but I did, and that's when they kind of first started talking to him, I guess, about Black Adam. Well, 13 years ago was the last Avatar film. And while it didn't take them 13 years to make it, which a lot of people are like, they spent 13 years making this film, it took 13 years to come out. I think initially this film was originally supposed to come out in 2016. They wanted to wait a bit for the technology. And then COVID happened. So those two things combined made it release now in 2022. But this is the sequel to the 2009 film. And what can I say about it that's not spoilery? If you didn't like Avatar, there's a 50-50 chance you might not like this one.
I would say more than a 50% chance that if you didn't like the first one, you're probably not going to like this one either.
But I do know two people who avidly did not like the first one, but they did like the second one. And the reasons they said they liked it was because there was some character development. There was an expansion of Pandora. And if we thought the tech looked amazing in 2009, holy shit, it looks amazing now. Like Maddie and I saw the remaster of Avatar 1 back in November, and the 4K remaster of that is insane. But this blows 2009 out of the water. I mean, it looks amazing. Even when we saw it in non-3D, it looks amazing. But there is, and the story isn't crazy deep, but you don't go to it for a deep story. You don't go to Star Wars for a deep story. But there is character development, and I did appreciate that. There were familiar themes with family and things that brought you in to care about the new cast members. There was a generational shift, which brought in some younger kids that will clearly be a major part of the future films. But you know, is it Oscar worthy in terms of the tech? Absolutely. In terms of the 100%. Story, probably not. But it was a hell of an experience. It's these films. James Cameron is obsessed with the experience, and he's obsessed with water, and he's obsessed with environmental things. He really is. He's a huge advocate for the environment and for whatever. So this is his venue to put all those things in one, and it's pretty damn good. I really enjoyed it, and my wife was a huge fan of the first one. She's a tree hugger, and so she loved the first one, and she never goes to see a movie twice, and she went to see Avatar 2 twice, and that's a 3+ hour movie to spend twice in a theater, and she did it. So I'm happy with it, but I want to know how big of a fan of Avatar 1 were you, and how does this compare?
I really didn't care about Avatar 1. I thought that the technology was great, but the story itself was kind of lackluster for me. There were elements to it where I was like, this would be kind of cool to see them dive into more. But somebody had made a Pocahontas comparison to it. A bunch of different ones.
Dances with Wolves.
They're talking about they just just talking about how unoriginal the story was, and that kind of poisoned me against the storytelling side of it. Mm-hmm. I rewatched it just last week because me and Cece knew that we were going to go and see it. And then we had some stuff that kind of messed it up, so we didn't go and see the second one the next day. We ended up seeing. I saw this movie yesterday, so I rewatched the original, and I tried to watch it without like that bias there. Again, though, it was like the story wasn't remarkable, but like they told the story well. Like that was like kind of like the key component that I tried to take away from it. I was just like, because if you can take like a story that doesn't have a lot of originality but still do a good job of telling it, like you can at least entertain. While I'm not going to advocate that anybody get an Oscar for their writing on this movie, yeah, that's it was kind of the same deal here. I will say that I have a soft spot for more of a soft spot for this one than I did the last one, specifically because of a lot of the ocean themes that are around there. There was a lot of stuff in there that related to stuff that I really care about. And I that I don't want to get into until we start talking spoilers. But again, yeah, we kind of ran into a situation where like the story wasn't really it was kind of overly predictable in a lot of places. The villain choice I really found incredibly lazy. And yeah, that was kind of like the main takeaway from it, is that the story wasn't really something that kind of like locked me in on its own. Like the technology kind of had to carry the heavy weight here, which it absolutely does with flying colors. I was hoping that there would be more of a balance this time. I didn't get my expectations up that this was going to be a story that I was going to be like, oh my God, that was incredible writing. Like, oh my God. Like I wasn't expecting that because the first one kind of held the same standard. And I mean that, like, this was almost an identical review between as far as the balance between story and technology goes. Like it was sort of the same way for the first one for me. It's like, this is kind of an unremarkable story with ridiculously remarkable visuals. And that's essentially my review for the second one. It's like, yeah, but kind of like your response to me when I sent you the message after I had seen it, it was like, well, were you expecting a groundbreaking story from James Cameron? It was like, no, I wasn't, but I was hoping for a better balance between the two. It was like, because it's clear that like an unbelievable amount of effort went into the visuals. I was hoping that there would be a little bit more of an effort put into making sure that the story told was better. Not that it was bad. Like it wasn't a bad story by any stretch of the imagination.
I wouldn't say it was as bad as the first one. I thought the first one was very much, and
again, I won't say as bad. Like that's not the.
I meant story wise, but
it was a better story than the first one.
Sure.
But the balance between story and technology was essentially the same.
These films are definitely more experience driven than story driven. And in fact, there's almost like a video game / amusement ride feeling to it, you know, like you even, there's even parts of this movie where you get like a character watching a video in the beginning, kind of gearing you up for the movie. And it's like, that's kind of like what you would do when you're waiting in line for a big amusement park ride at Universal Studios or something. But I do feel like the first film was heavily written by James Cameron. The difference between that film and this film, he did bring on some additional writers, and two of them were the writers from the new Planet of the Apes franchise. And those films, while they weren't, they were more character driven than story driven. And I do feel like there was a step up in character development in this film than in the first film. Like Jake Sully is likable, but incredibly stupid in the first film. I mean, I get it. He's thrown into the mix, but he's like the dumbest jarhead you can think of. And then the dialogue doesn't help him either. Like he says a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah, no,
they they give him a little more layers in this film as a father. You know, he's that instead of the white, you know, savior character to the indigenous tribe. He's a father now. He has to care about his family. And I did like there was a little more character layers in this film than there was in the first film, and I did appreciate that. And I feel like they're laying the seeds for other stories. This is definitely
Well, they kind of have to because they've got so many sequels planned for this.
Correct. Like, and here's the thing that I will give to this film, because we've heard, and I will be on that bandwagon of James Cameron kind of sounds crazy when he's always talking about the 5th sequel to Avatar and whatever. But here's the deal. He actually has turned over the scripts to all 5 films of the studio.
And I believe he's finished filming.
He's finished filming 3. And he's already filmed part of 4. And while they haven't greenlit 4 and 5 yet, apparently the studio had minimal notes on the scripts through 5. So they have, unlike the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, which it just seems like they were grasping at plot points every movie they came for, it does feel like he has a pathway for 5 films.
Oh, that's so important. Like, yeah, and that's going to give him such a wild leg up over like as the example you gave is the Star Wars franchise, is because we have one person who has a story that he wants to tell over the course of this, instead of having 3 separate people trying to put something together out of thin fucking air.
And he even said he's okay if he's not the director for 4 and 5. He's obviously the director for 3 because they've already filmed it. But he's willing to pass the baton, but they do have the story laid out. But what I was saying is this film wasn't necessarily a middle film. Sometimes you get sequel films and you're like, this wasn't even a full film. You know, it's just it felt like filler. This had a small mini arc, but then it had seeds for bigger storylines. So I didn't leave it feeling like I didn't get a full movie. I got a full movie and I was happy with that. And I'm interested in the seeds they laid for bigger themes and plot points in future films.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I would disagree a little bit on this feeling like filler, because there were a lot of things here where it was very heavily catered towards, well, you're going to have to watch the next movie to see any more development here.
There's definitely unsolved plot points for sure.
Well, yeah, but some of the things that were coming out, like there were questions that probably should have gotten hints towards answers that we didn't really get. Like you shouldn't have to see the next one in order to get an idea as far as what they're going to be going for. But there was also some stuff in here that they included that I wouldn't have.
Oh, there's stuff they could cut for sure.
Like, yeah. So, but again, we're dealing more with the spectacle rather than the story. But I find it kind of cheap to be like, oh yeah, the visuals are so good, I'm just going to excuse absolutely everything else, which a few people in my friend group wanting to do. Like I saw people posting, talking about how angry they were that people weren't calling this movie a masterpiece. It was like, well, technically, yeah, but like cinematically and story wise, no, I'm not gonna like. There's some great moments in this, but yeah, like he's not breaking new ground as far as the story and performances are concerned. Did a great job, but yeah, like I'm not writing this I'm not writing this an Oscar for best picture or anything like that.
I would say this is well, and I mean, Oscar for best picture has kind of been diluted over the years. You have very
my standard
I know, I'm sure.
is maintained. Like,
but if you've looked at
the Oscars don't,
if you've looked at some of the years, you'll have very story narrative driven films, you know, like Whiplash and other things that are in that category, and then you have very spectacle driven films like Mad Max Fury Road, which had it was a long car chase there and back. That was the entire plot, but it was visually amazing, and that got nominated for best picture. So I guess it just depends on, you know, what you're looking for. But this is definitely a blockbuster, and not all blockbusters have amazing plots. You know, like Independence Day is not an incredibly deep story, but it's a blockbuster, and this would be a modern blockbuster that I think we haven't really had in a long time,
Yeah. I mean, when it's, and I hate talking about like box office performance when everybody's talking about how good a movie ends up being, like, but I mean, it is noteworthy that this movie is going to reach $1 billion within. I think the article that I found was that it passed $1 billion within 10 days.
Now that's been corrected because it did release in some countries. So I think it was 13 or 14 days by the end of it. It's still pretty darn fast. It's faster than the first film. We'll talk about the box office before we get into spoilers. There's been a lot of like need to hate this film. Like, I get it. Not everybody's a fan of James Cameron, and he does speak out of his ass sometimes. But there's been a lot of like, for example, Babylon just came out last weekend. It was made. It had a budget of over $100 million. It made $3 million.
Bombing pretty bad.
I mean, $3 million. That would be a bomb. Okay, Black Panther. We'll talk about Black Panther. Avatar: The Way of Water. Its opening weekend domestically was 135 million. A lot of people thought it was going to make 150, 170. It was 135 million. That's double what the first Avatar made in the first weekend. And yet people were flocking to the negative headlines of Avatar underperformed. Avatar didn't hit the mark. Avatar a flop? Is Disney pissed off about Avatar's performance? Just like the first Avatar, it seems like The Way of Water has legs because within 2 weeks, it's already passed 1.1 million.
Yeah, this article here is now saying that it was 14 days that
14. Okay.
That it crossed over.
That's still pretty darn fast. It took the first Avatar 19 days. So it beat the first Avatar. One of the things a lot of people are referencing is this Variety article that featured a interview, quotes from an interview that they did with James Cameron, in which he said that this project is super expensive and that it will likely have to be the 4th or 5th highest grossing film to break even. So a lot of people have been pushing that for the last month, saying, oh my God, Avatar's 2 budget must be insane because James Cameron says it needs $2 billion to break even. It doesn't need $2 billion to break even. This is a quote from a Screen Rant article. It says it wasn't Variety, it was GQ. It says, per GQ, James Cameron implies that Avatar: The Way of Water needs $2 billion to break even. But that is unlikely. Also, he was talking about filming 2 and 3 at the same time, so he could have meant the budget for both combined. But this says, differing reports say this film cost $250 to $450 million. But according to THR, the budget is around the $350 million mark. If those numbers are consistent for all 4 sequels, they would collectively cost around $1 billion, meaning $2 billion is probably an accurate estimate for what the collective franchise needs to make as a profit. Anywhere around 800 to 900 million would likely be the money for Avatar: The Way of Water to start being profitable. So people have been shitting on Avatar for the last couple weeks, saying, oh, who cares if it hit $1 billion? It still needs $2 billion just to break even. It doesn't.
Yeah, I can't think of a world where a movie cost over $1 billion to make, even with something with the technical prowess that this film did. That's just
studio would approve. There was a guy on Twitter I saw who was speaking like he knew the fact that the Avatar 2's budget was $400 million, but the studio spent $600 million on advertising, making it a $100 million or $1 billion budget. That makes no sense.
I can see them investing a lot of money into marketing.
$600 million?
But I think that figure is factored into the original estimate for budgeting.
Yeah, they filmed 2 films simultaneously, so not just for one film.
Well, yeah, but still, when you hear somebody talk about how a movie took $200 million to make, I think that $200 million is including the however many millions of dollars it actually costs in order to market it and like
Well,
run all the adverts and all stuff. I don't know that they're separated budgets.
usually when they release a budget, it's the budget, and then the algorithm is double that for advertising and overhead. It's usually so if it was a $450 million movie, let's just say it was that one of the most expensive movies ever made. I wouldn't doubt it. Then it would put it around 900 million to break even. Anybody saying that they spent 600 million on advertising alone, they didn't. They just didn't. That's insane.
I don't mean to yawn so much. I'm not bored. I'm on muscle relaxers for.
You're
my
so
neck,
bored. You're insulting me.
I'm on muscle relaxers for my neck, and they're making me drowsy as shit.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well that's news to me. I did not know that was how the budget for advertising and all this stuff was calculated or anything like that. But then again, I think they're going to be kind of vague about what they spend on these things because they don't want people to have those exact figures and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it all leads back to kind of the same thing. I hate when people talk about box office performance as far as how well a movie does, because there's been some really good movies that just didn't market too terribly well.
Yeah, and some terrible movies that did
and didn't do great in the theater as a result. I don't know that Babylon's going to be a bad movie specifically because it is bombing in the box office. Like it could specifically be that it's not like from the trailers that I've seen, it doesn't look like a wildly appealing film for somebody to go out and have like a good time in the theater. It looks like it's kind of like poking at how nasty Hollywood is in that, especially in that time era, but relating it to now. And
I'm a huge. Who's the guy that wrote it? Is it Damien? What's his last name?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Damien Chazelle. He did Whiplash. He did La La Land. I'm a huge fan of his, and I don't have a huge need to go see this film. I heard it's just a 3-hour orgy. But here's the thing: there's always going to be counter programming. Even though Avatar came out, somebody is going to have the balls to put their movie next to it to say, if you don't want to see Avatar, here's the other film. And guess what that film was? It was Puss in Boots. And Puss in Boots has actually performed really well. If you want
all the reviews I've seen have been like remarkably good. It had no business being this good.
If you want to take your family to a movie on Christmas weekend and you don't want to see a 3-hour Avatar film, what are you going to choose? A 3-hour R-rated orgy film or Puss in Boots? More people chose Puss in Boots. Yeah. Even if Babylon is a good film, this was the wrong time to drop it. Yeah. Christmas weekend is not the time to drop an R-rated Hollywood orgy film. I don't care how good it is. You could have probably dropped it any other time and it would have done better.
And I don't know. I guess we'll see how fast that one starts streaming. That's probably the giveaway now is them being like,
look how fast Amsterdam dropped on streaming. It was a blink and it was there.
Crazy quick. I've kind of exhausted what I want to talk about as far as spoiler free stuff goes. I don't have a whole hell of a lot to talk about. And again, these muscle relaxers are fucking beating me into the brain. So I don't know how much longer maybe I'll stay awake at this point. You want to go ahead and throw the spoiler tag up there?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So I have 2 points that stick out to me like right off of the bat out of this movie as like the most memorable things. I'm going to do the good one first. It was good, but in like a horrible way. Which I don't even know if that's the right way to put it. So something that stuck with me from childhood. So orcas were always my favorite animal as a kid, always. Mm-hmm. And I always had like an affinity to the ocean. This was before the movie Free Willy. I had not seen the movie Free Willy. I saw a video in school about orcas and I was in love with them right off of the bat. I saw I don't know if I want to call it a documentary or a docu-reality series or something like that, but there was a show on Animal Planet a while back called Whale Wars. And it was about a group called Sea Shepherd who try to interrupt or completely stop the Japanese whaling vessels who are killing a lot of whales, a lot more than what they need for their claimed research purposes. It's not for research; it's total BS. And that industry always really fucked with me. And every single time I see a story about whaling or the mistreatment of orcas or any whale for that matter, it really hits home really bad. And so the hardest fucking scene for me to watch in this goddamn movie is when they're killing the whale. And the reason that I think that it was such a good scene is because it was as close to reality in modern day now as it could be in that futuristic setting. Because the process of it was so real, and then the end result of it was so common to what the actual issue was. It was just like, this was one of many themes that James Cameron threw into here that were very much activism, much less cinema. But he did such a good job with it. Like, it made me feel like I was crying. Like I had full on tears coming out of my eyes during that scene. It was really hard to watch. The only thing that I didn't like about the whales that they had in the movie is that he was subtitling them. Like that really bugged me. I was just like, it would have been so much better for you to just like not subtitle them and let the dialogue from the Na'vi that they're interacting with kind of like dictate how they say it. Kind of like how like the droids, the non-speaking droids in Star Wars are.
Right. They carry a conversation, but you don't see exactly what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can infer, you can fill in the gaps based off of the responses.
Sure.
I really loved the relationship that they had there, and I felt like that was like a really big piece of character development was between Noak. I think his name's Noak. Loak.
Yeah.
Was between Loak and the outcast whale that they had there. I can't remember the species name off the top of my head, but
or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Whales.
Like Tulak, something like that. I've been calling them whales. There was some really good moments there. And that was kind of like my favorite part of it was sort of the symbiosis between the water tribes and the sea life that they had. They did a great job with that. And then again, the technical aspect of them in the water and just the water effects that they had were just fucking unreal. Specifically the reflections, especially when they were wet coming out of the water, and you'd see their faces close up, and just like the effects of like wet skin, the slight light reflections, and then the water dripping down. I was like, unreal, unbelievable.
Regarding the whales, I want to comment on that. I think that was the whole Loak subplot with him bonding with the whales. It's like a 20-minute subplot. It could have been cut from the film, or at least cut down to but I think him bonding with that whale made those whaling scenes hit a little harder.
Yeah.
And James Cameron is a big anti-whaler, and he's big into environmental stuff, and that was clearly a metaphor for whaling. It wasn't just a fictional thing. And the fact that they were killing these whales just for this, this vial of serum, and it was a kind of a throwaway line that, this will keep humans from aging. But it was the point. The first film was unobtainium, and they were willing to destroy a forest to get it. This film, that wasn't their sole thing. They said in the beginning that their new thing is basically moving humans to Pandora. But this was just another way that they were like ravaging the resources because that's what humans do. And so it wasn't the point wasn't the vial of stuff. It was the fact that they were just willing to just kill the whales for this small thing.
Oh, they had absolutely no regard for the rest of it after they were done. They're like, oh, sinker.
That was very powerful.
Just sinker. And you kind of jumped to the point that I was going to make anyway. Like, I really liked the sequence. I loved the sequence of him interacting with the whale. I thought the cinematography in those scenes was really good.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't necessary to the story.
It was like a 20-minute side plot. Yeah.
Yeah. All to kind of like help your connection to the whaling part of it. Like the scene where all the whales were coming in and like as part of their migration pattern, like they could have made the connection there.
Sure.
by itself. But they wanted to have the outcast child interact with the outcast child, and I can see where that came from. Yeah. But that whole thing with Loak and his whale could have been cut.
And put in a director's cut. James Cameron has director's cuts. I could have seen a 20-minute longer director's cut of this film that had that side plot. Yeah. It didn't add that much. I mean, it definitely added to the impact of that scene. But yeah, if you were trying to be like, we need an under 3-hour version of this film, you could have cut that side plot and not cut that much from the film.
There's no universe where they would have been sitting down in the post-production cutting room and being like, and watching that whaling scene and be like, you know what? I don't think people are going to see how wrong this is. Let's put in a section where he actually loves one of these whales. Like, no, I think everybody and their mother would have been like, fuck whaling.
Right.
From that scene alone. Like, it would have been enough.
Sure. And but this is James Cameron.
Damn, was it satisfying seeing that dude get his arm cut off of that kill.
Oh my God. That was a
gruesome kill. And it was
probably the most gruesome kill. There was not a lot of gore in this film. And that was like, are we going to see it? Are we going to see it? And then, of course, Jermaine, what's his face from the Flight of the Conchords, was the scientist or the environmentalist that was with him. And Maddie loved that. And he didn't die, thankfully. But yeah,
you could tell that he didn't like what was happening either. But like
for sure,
he's having a hard time. And then the bone that I had to pick with the movie, which I did mention in the spoiler-free review, was them bringing back the original villain. Bringing back the colonel, or no, colonel? Is he a colonel?
Yeah,
colonel. Is it colonel or
Quaritch? Quaritch. Yeah, he's not.
He was a colonel
in this film.
Jake was Jake was corporal. Right. This guy was colonel.
Right.
I thought I had the two flipped.
No.
Yeah, bringing him back, I thought was dumb. I found that move incredibly, like, as soon as it happened, I was like, wow, this is fucking lazy. Like, because they didn't really touch on like the cloning process any further after that. They're just like, like it was kind of strange that this is what they decided to bring up. And like it again, in any movie, I'm not stretching this out to just Marvel films at this point anymore, but whenever you have, like, your protagonist is only going to be as good as his antagonist. Like, there has to be a great balance there. And this is where the story's weakest point for me is that they brought the original villain back, gave him his son for some fucking reason. That had no impact on me whatsoever. I thought Spider was an interesting character enough without him having some sort of paternal relation to the bad guy. Bringing back the original villain, I thought was really stupid, because like the villain was already clearly laid out as this corporate, like, earthbound entity that was coming and destroying Pandora.
Sure.
And you could have had any fucking empty-faced military guy leading the war effort to kill off Jake and Neytiri and his family. Like, did not need to be the original villain at all. Didn't really add any weight to the interaction. Like, it honestly, like, if they wanted to have there be some sort of familial thing, they should have just had it be another fucking human, like his human son, who was already like grown up in the military and knew that his father had been killed off by that. And he was then an avatar himself, rather than a cloned Na'vi that is like just the full embodiment at that point. Like, I found it really lazy that they brought the villain back, and unfortunately didn't add anything for me in his performance by him having a son in the game either, because it just made it predictable.
Let me give you my counter argument for that. And I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise, because I definitely see where you're at. But let me give you my counter. Had this movie come out 3 or 4 years after the first one, I think I would agree with you. But it didn't. It came out 13 years later. And this film, I feel like if we do get all 5 films, I feel like this film will probably be the least essential of the 5. Because basically, it was we need to reintroduce people to Pandora. It's been 13 years. We need to kind of a lot of this movie is a redo of the first movie, but it's through Courage's eyes. We get you taming the flying dragon for the first time again through his eyes. We get a lot of introductions again through the villain's eyes, and I think that was on purpose. I think the 13 years helped with that kind of a reintegration of that. I think the family going to the water tribe again, it was another level of them learning Pandora, instead of spending another montage of exploring the forest. They were now exploring the water life. It was a different level of Pandora, but it was still a welcome to Pandora. This is that. And
they had to recreate that fish out of water feeling.
They did. And I
think they could have done without reinstituting the villain. I think it would have been more angry.
I think the villain will be bigger than him in future films. They definitely set the playing film because the playing field, because that scene when they come down and it's just scorched earth and they literally build a city in the middle of a desert that they burned into the middle of a forest. I like that. I don't feel like Courage will be the main villain of future films. I believe he'll be a tool of the villainry. Well, I hope not.
They left him alive. I don't know why
they left him alive, but I don't think he'll be the main villain of the next film. I hope they don't try to redeem him because I don't think he's redeemable. But I don't think
know, man. It really feels like they're going. It feels like they're going to be trying to go that way. Like I'm getting hints that might be what they're trying to do.
That he's read the future scripts and he's a villain throughout, but he could just be paid to say that, So who knows? I hope they don't.
So was Darth Vader all the way up until the fucking end.
Right. I did like him though. I did like him. I liked the element of Spider. I liked it because it'd be easy. We didn't have a lot of humans in this film, and it was nice to see a human every once in a while. It was nice to see Spider, the limitations that he had, because the humans that they're moving to Pandora, that's going to be a limitation until they come up with some type of inoculation that they don't have to use the mask. That was a reminder of the limitations humans have on this earth. And I did like the final battle between Jake Sully and Neytiri and Courage. I thought that was great. That was basically Titanic, but with weapons. And I liked it.
Dude, the stakes felt so much stronger on this fight than they did in the first movie. Like they did a much better job of making that, because he had more skin in the game. Jake was like,
and Neytiri. I think I don't want much more of Courage, but I do want a Neytiri versus Courage showdown, because she's the one that killed him. And she's the one that it feels like she hates him more than Jake Sully does. And that one son for a son scene was fantastic. I thought Neytiri was just like dead-eyed, killing mode Neytiri, and I thought that was a fantastic
I was a little pissed off that Spider didn't get an apology from her. See her.
He's hated him the entire movie. Like, I feel like the third movie, Jake has brought him into the family. I don't think she's on board for that. Like, she wasn't on board for him hanging out with the kids in the beginning of the film, let alone after everything that goes down. So
yeah, but he also was like responsible for her kids being saved, and I think there's like I think there's an element there that needed to be recognized, and she didn't have that.
She straight up sliced him.
Yeah,
I mean,
I cut.
I believe it. I believe that she would kill him.
I did too. And I honestly was kind of like half expecting it, and that would have been an interesting moment for her kids, because Grace already felt like her name's Kiri, but Kiri would have felt even more of an outcast at that point, knowing that like her mother had absolutely no regard for this person who she identified with very much. And I was like, that would have created a really interesting dynamic for them to run into.
Mm.
But they didn't go that route, and I don't think it was a bad route, the one that they did go.
I'm glad they didn't go with Spider leaving with his dad. Like, there were times where I'm like, this is what's going to happen, because he sees sides of Jake Sully and Neytiri that he hasn't seen before. And I was like, he's gonna go with Quaritch, isn't he? He's gonna think that they're too crazy and go with Quaritch, but he doesn't. And that was like,
it seemed like they were going that route down that road when he was like hiding behind the pillars and he was seeing all this shit go down.
Yeah,
like it was a nice like you could kind of tell that when he saved him, like he really didn't want to, he felt like he had to, as kind of like a way to like be a better part of humanity. But he really didn't like that he had to do that. And so
when he did connect with him over the montages, but he didn't like, he never was like, I love you, Dad. You know, like he was always like, this is fucked up what you're doing, and I'm not on board for this, you know. So I did like that they didn't like force this father-son thing. They didn't need to do that.
Yeah. I was a little miffed that we didn't get more of like the science team is what they were like, because I kind of wanted to know what they were still doing there. Like, because Grace had all these theories about what the planet was doing and all these connections and stuff like that. Like the science behind the universe that they've built, I thought was really cool in the first one. And I was like, I kind of want to learn more. Like I want to know what's going on. And the science teams, like they would have been like the audience character for us as far as explaining all that stuff, and we didn't get any of that, and that was a little sad.
I wondered how they'd survived all this time, you know, like if how did their tech continue to work if all the humans left, and then when all the humans came back, how did they not go after them first, you know, like
that was another thing. It was just like so they didn't find a way to remove the tracker from their airship at all during all that time. And as soon as they flew in to help Curie out, they gave the whole fucking game away.
I feel like that's what we'll see in part 3. Part 2 was kind of this reintroduction phase. Part 3 is getting, because we didn't really see, once we saw Quaritch go off on his mission, we didn't really see much of home base humans anymore. And I feel like just because Neytiri and Jake Sully and their family left the Forest People doesn't mean the Forest People aren't still dealing with the humans, and the humans aren't still planning on expanding. Like they might have had this submission of going after Sully, but that's not. If they kill Sully, the Na'vi aren't just going to be like, all right, you win, we'll be nice from now on. Like that's not the end game. So I feel like part 3 needs to be more of the human.
If anything, that'll just and if anything, now if they kill off Jake Sully, now they've got 2 separate tribes on the planet who are going to be enraged.
Yeah,
and I mean, in the final movie, we are going to see one hell of an epic war, without question.
Well, James Cameron is saying if we get to 5, it'll be back on Earth. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's what he said. Here's a question I have for you. Just because I feel like we have to bring it up, you know, Twitter is a fire with this, half of Twitter. Do you feel like this film was racist? Because there is a campaign saying that James Cameron culturally appropriated indigenous people on you know Native Americans, different tribes around New Zealand and stuff like that, that he culturally appropriated that for the Na'vi, and that this film is inherently a white savior racist story.
So I don't see it as a white savior story, because if that were the case, you would have to believe that transracialism is a thing, and that people can just decide that they're a different race in real life and abandon the sci-fi aspect of this. No, I don't. I'm not picking up any racist tones over this thing. Not like, at least none that would be relatable as far as like on our human scale in real life. There were obvious racial themes in the film between like the Water Tribe and the Forest Tribe. The differences there, and like the prejudices that they were running into for not being like full Na'vi. But that was intentional. You can see where the inspiration would come from the Maori people in the Pacific Islanders and stuff like that. But
Native Americans and
but that existed in the last one. Like they're showing the connection that these people had with the planet and how, if anything, this is showcasing just how horribly and fucked up colonial racism was when it showed up. Like this is just showcasing in a like this is taking a real life scenario and applying it in a fantasy world. And it's ugly because it was.
That's what I don't get.
That was the case. Like this is
that's
literally
the point of the film.
Like this is showcasing what that actually fucking was. And I can't imagine somebody from like a Maori people seeing like these New Zealanders, this obvious New Zealand inspiration of people being shown as this very proud people who are spiritually connected to the nature and to the creatures around them and having this deep connection to the ocean and the environment around them and being like, wow, bro, that's fucked up. Why would you? That's cultural appropriation. Like, no, that is cultural appreciation. Like they are the heroes in this story. Like they are the good side in this story.
This is, I want to read this to you. This is, I feel like there's always just a level of dumb with people.
Outrage gets clicks.
Outrage
that's 100% what it is. Outrage
but it's
gets
so
clicks.
Transparent that it gets clicks. This is what I want to. This is from New York Post, which granted is New York Post.
Everything's racist if you look hard enough.
Sure, but this says the Avatar 2 Way of Water director James Cameron, 68, is accused of stealing themes, history, and imagery from Native American and indigenous cultures for his latest blockbuster. First of all, it's fiction. Second of all, it's about aliens. Third of all, it's clearly inspired by those people. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. It's on purpose. Like, it's intentional. And the fact that the leader of granted, the most people I've seen tweet about this are white people. They usually are.
That's always the fucking case. That is what pisses me off about all this woke bullshit that comes out.
It's usually a white person being offended for a non-white person.
It is so much fucking virtue signaling. It's like you thinking that you need to be the voice to stand up for these people as if they don't have the strength to speak for themselves. That's fucking racist. That's fucking racist. Because if these people were actually offended, if these people were actually upset about this stuff, they would fucking say it themselves. They have no reason not to, and they have absolutely every platform in the world to make sure that they can do that. Like you being like the fucking white suburban fuck up that you fucking are, jumping onto the bandwagon, being like, "Oh my god, Avatar is culturally appropriating this race that I am totally not at all." Like. Fuck you pasty white fuck. Like
but there is
pisses me off so
much.
There
is at least one high profile Native American person. You Begay, I'm probably fucked up that name. First of all, they refer to her as an influencer, and that already makes me cringe. But
I'm off you're off the table at that point.
Yeah, right? she's been saying, do not watch Avatar: The Way of Water. Join natives and other indigenous groups around the world in boycotting this horrible and racist films. Cultures were appropriated in a harmful manner to satisfy a white savior complex. The social justice.
Did they go into detail about how it's harmful, or do they just say that it's harmful and expect you to take their fucking word for it? Because
this is what they say. The social justice influencer referenced a 2010 interview with the Titanic director, in which he revealed that he went to Brazil and visited the Xingu people of the Amazon, a trip that made him reflect on the experience of the North American Indians and ultimately inspired him to make the first Avatar film. After that film, the term blueface became shorthand in alleging that Avatar universe's appropriation, with the implication that the franchise's representation of the Na'vi carried the same racist undertones associated with blackface and yellowface. It's clearly inspired by them. How is how is writing
he is
science fiction
he
alien
is
race based on real life issues in real life Earth culturally how I don't get it. Like I don't
if James Cameron had made this movie set in the modern day, set in the world where he had a Native American tribe come in here and he had a fucking white dude show up and try and play like you could not make Pocahontas today. Like you literally could not make the animated Disney Pocahontas movie could not be fucking made right now. Like because you would have that exact situation. You'd have a white guy fucking coming in doing all that stuff. And it'd be fucked up. This guy, like, my God,
the final part of this says
James Cameron and the Avatar movie is literally on that side.
Yeah,
they're on the side of those people saying, "Hey, the shit that happened when colonialism kicked off in full force was fucked up. It was fucked up."
Yeah,
and this is me telling that story in a futuristic setting because, like, if he had tried to make it in a modern setting, it would not have reached as many people. Yeah. And it would have been another fucking Cowboys and Indians movie where, like, you would have had people being like, "Oh yeah, we identify with the Cowboys. I was always a cowboy when I was a kid." It was like,
yeah,
like no, like he made it very clear that the fucking humans in this scenario were the fucking bad guys, even though there were some outliers. It's not a white savior thing. Like, it's literally showcasing how fucked up we were.
And I wouldn't even call the first Avatar a white savior movie. If anything, Jake Sully is the dumbest person in the film. And while he does, tame the giant, dragon bird thing in the end, he's never really seen as the leader. And he doesn't even he doesn't kill the bad guy. Neytiri does. He's blamed for most of the bad things that happen. And then in this film,
he causes a bunch of problems, and he is forced to fix them with skills that he would not have had he not been trained by the Na'vi.
And then in this film, he's on the run with his family. He's not treated as the leader of the people or you're the only one that can save us. He's really just defending his family. So I don't feel like it is I think it's a stretch to call it a white savior thing. And
it's like, if you want to get on, if like you really want to get deep into it, it's like you're basically saying that interracial marriages are racist.
Yeah, I mean that could be a whole other level of the argument.
Yeah, you could go that route, and you could say that person is saying that interracial marriages are fucking racist.
Just, this article ends with a comment. And again, any article that just takes tweets and makes news stories around them, that
fucking lazy.
The only thing worse than that is taking a Reddit post and making a story around it. But it ends with, "Why watch a ridiculous movie about blue aliens when you could just support actual indigenous people and our struggle for clean water here on Earth? Yes, we do exist." Nobody is watching Avatar saying indigenous people don't exist. James Cameron never said, "Watch Avatar, don't support real life indigenous." The whole point of Avatar is a reflection of real life. It's fiction. It's a reflection. That's the point of movies. Like, why watch any movie with that concept or with that logic? Why watch any movie? Don't go to the movies, Seth. Support every nonprofit and cause that you can do. Spend your money and time that way. Stop trying to find enjoyment for yourself.
I get so irritated when people try and call out racism in areas where it was clearly not intended. Like, it's just,
it's blatant because it's on purpose.
We can't make fucking they can't make fucking anything anymore.
Yeah.
Like, without being overly sensitive to stuff. Like, and again, like, you have one Native American influencer who's talking about all this stuff. It's like, you are just shouting into a fucking ether.
Yeah.
Or in some cases an echo chamber based on your own, how much of an influence you actually are.
Yeah.
And being like, "Oh, this movie came out, don't forget about me today."
Sure.
I was like, it wasn't trying to take attention off of you.
I'm sure there's a white supremacist out on Twitter somewhere that's saying the exact opposite. This movie hates white men. The only villains of this film are white humans.
100% that exists. 100%. Yeah. There are people who will not watch Avatar because they believe that it is just about white supremacy coming in and ruin indigenous populations.
Yeah.
Even though it fucking kind of is. Like, that's exactly, it's kind of the point they're trying to make.
Going back to the film, though, I agree with you. I think it was a technical masterpiece. We were talking yesterday about whether or not this is going to be tarnished by stories about overworked.
I was so worried, dude. I was so worried that I was going to find out that VFX artists were like fucking.
Because we've talked about that mainly with Marvel, and I can't help but compare Wakanda Forever. I loved Wakanda Forever. I think it was a good film. But if you want to compare the underwater civilization of Wakanda Forever to this film, it's clear, Weta spent some more time on this.
There's no comparison.
Nobody looks like they're holding their breath unless they're supposed to be holding their breath in this film. Going back, I watched some behind the scenes of the filming of the first episode, the first Avatar. Weta wanted to be so much a part of Avatar when they first heard about it that they turned down other things after Lord of the Rings. They were like, nope, we want to do Avatar. And so it's crazy the amount of people that work on it. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of people.
Oh man, Weta. Dude, it is a massive industry. Like, I mean, just what they had to do with Lord of the Rings, which at the time was, again, there was another technical marvel there. There was groundbreaking work that they were doing at that point too.
But there's something to be said of under the umbrella of Weta versus how many third party and fourth party VFX people they need for one single Marvel film. It's insane. And yet I mean, for the most part, Avatar 2 is insanely beautiful. Like, there's a couple scenes that kind of look like a PS4, PS5 cutscene, but for the most part,
there was one scene that sticks out to me, and I think it was one of the moments where the commando Na'vi land on the whaling ship and kind of like jump themselves down. There was one moment there where the motion looked a little fucked up.
Yep, I noticed that too. In the same way when they first dropped down in the forest, and one of them has sunglasses, and they all have their different things, and it kind of looked like a game. And then when it zoomed in, you got those extra details. You got the pores on the face and stuff like that.
And it was like the quick scenes that they were hoping would go by fast enough to where they didn't have to put quite as much time into them.
But the underwater stuff, water is some of the most craziest, hardest things to animate.
In the video game world, man, fucking games that have heavy water effects and stuff like that, or especially like the reflections that you need for them, is always the most graphically intense. It's like it's shadows, water, reflections, all that stuff. There's always separate sections in there for water reflections and trying to like downscale them because of how graphically intensive they are.
Yeah.
So whenever you can have something pull it off well, it's always a marvel. Sea of Thieves is a game that sticks out in my mind a lot as having like really, really cool looking water effects without having it be like ridiculously graphically intense. But that has like an intentional cartoony feel to it. Trying to find a game that has realistic looking water without it being like a drag on your system is fucking hard.
But James Cameron is obsessed with water. I mean, Titanic, the documentary stuff he's done underwater. I mean, he himself is personally obsessed with the deep ocean.
Zoe Saldana had an interview where she was talking about how this movie was like James Cameron's love letter to the ocean. You can see it. You can absolutely see that.
And I would hope so, because he spent 13 years. He did say in a recent interview that he will always be sad for the films that he wasn't able to make because of this franchise. But he is in love with this franchise, and he's clearly putting everything into it. And and The Way of Water is just a smorgasbord of everything that James Cameron loves. And And I loved that. I think he really did score really big, and I'm sure part 3 will be another element. Maybe there'll be lava people or something. I don't know, but
I think the next one's title came out. It was like the Seed Bearer or something like that.
Yeah, so I don't know what that is, but
probably making their way. Some of them are making their way back to the forest. We get more of the.
But they did film a lot of this in water. In fact, even Kate Winslet broke Tom Cruise's holding breath underwater record. Granted, this is a record for actors, not for normal,
right.
for people.
Yeah, no, there's
there's
I think what's the record for staying underwater right now? It's like 11 minutes or something like that.
It's something like that. But she stayed underwater for 7 minutes and 10 seconds, and that beat out Tom Cruise's 6 minutes something. So for actors, that's a pretty big deal.
Jesus Christ. Okay, the longest time breath held voluntarily underwater is 24 minutes 37.36 seconds.
Oh, fuck that. I mean, there's a video of Kate Winslet when she comes out of her 7 minute and 10 minute 7 minute and 10-second thing, and she says, "Am I dead?" So 24 minutes? Holy shit. How do you even do that? That's I can't imagine 7 minutes, let alone 20 plus minutes. That's insane.
Yeah, without training, we can manage about 90 seconds underwater before needing to take a breath. But on February 28th, 2016, Spain's Alix Segura Vendrell achieved the world record for breath holding with a time of 24 minutes.
Wow. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. I want to bring up the Kate
Oscar-winning actress learned to hold her breath underwater for an incredible 7 minutes and 47 seconds. The time was also enough to beat Cruise's record of 6 minutes, which he did for a sequence in 2015's Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Yeah, which was incredible.
All right, so basically what we can assess now is that Tom Cruise is going to have another movie out here before too long. It's going to be very water-based.
Yeah, I think he'll let it go. I mean, he's got bigger fish to fry than
I don't know, man. Dude, Tom Cruise has got enough fuck you money where he could get that level of petty, and it would not surprise me.
I want to bring this up. I'm not going to put sound on because I think it has subtitles. But this is when she comes out and she's doing her breathing and everything. Oh, hold up. All right. It'll show it again. But she literally asks, "Am I dead?" Which is insane. Because and then they tell her how much it is. But she was basically saying like she would do these processes in her head, but they couldn't be too complex because it would spoil, it would cause too much energy for her to hold her breath. So they had to be simple. But just to come out of water and be like, "Am I dead?" Like that's insane after 7 minutes. That's crazy. But that's how they did it. They did film a lot of this underwater. So the CG on top of filming underwater is absolutely insane. And they pulled it off. It looked amazing. The underwater stuff looked amazing. And I think it worked for a reintroduction to Pandora. But I don't think the next film is according to James Cameron, is set to come out in December of 2024. We're not waiting another decade for the next film. So the next film has to be more than a reintroduction. It's 2 years. We don't need another reintroduction to Pandora. We need significant progress on the story elements, and I think that's what we'll get. So I'm excited for it.
I'm in the same boat. I'm my standard expectations are only lower though. Like I'm not going to be expecting them to blow my mind on the next one as far as the story is concerned, which isn't the outcome that I want. I'm sorry. I saw when I looked this up on Google, it brought up the cast and Vin Diesel showed up in there for some reason.
Yeah, and we saw that too, and we were like, "Wait, what was it?" So Vin Diesel was supposed to be voicing one of the Commando avatars, but then they ended up bringing the other actor back. He was on set. There's a video of him and James Cameron on set, and they said they're going to utilize him for the next film, but he is not in this film.
Okay.
But he was supposed to be in this film, and then they got the original actor back last minute. So
Yeah, that was just a little weird. I was like, who the hell is Vin Diesel playing in there?
Right.
Like, because this is one of those movies where you're like, shit, I don't recognize any of these people except for like the rare occasion that like you can see like those qualities in their faces. Like, I don't remember seeing Vin in this at all. Maybe he did a voiceover or something.
I did really like Cliff. What's his name? He played the leader of the Sea People, Cliff Curtis.
He did a great job.
He's from New Zealand, and again, they brought a lot of the Maori stuff over. There was a lot of the tattoos and the tongue stuff, and there was a lot of that.
Yeah, you could see kind of like that tribal nature that they have, and like
yeah.
Honestly, I was expecting that they were going to do a haka, which we didn't see, which is
they almost kind of did, but they didn't.
Which would have been fucking badass as hell, but then it would have been like too close.
But that was also his tribute because he filmed most of Avatar 1 in New Zealand, and most of the stunt team were New Zealand.
Yeah, they did the same thing for Lord of the Rings. Like they filmed that in there. Like a lot of Urukai were New Zealanders, and like a lot of the stunt people were New Zealanders. And like he
left there to come back to America to film all the post-production stuff. They did a haka for him, and they said, please finish up Avatar, but come back for the future of Avatar to New Zealand. And so I think, if anything, that's a nod to them, not a cultural appropriation.
Dude, they wouldn't even fucking have bothered to be involved.
Right.
Like if they thought that was going to be the case. And it's like you're pouring money into these tribes and into these peoples. Like that's never going to be a bad thing. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add at this point. I'm just getting mad now.
I don't either. I was pleasantly surprised because I could always understand what people said about the first film in terms of the weak storyline and the Ferngully and Pocahontas and all that stuff. I just wanted to go and be entertained, and I came out and a 3-hour film.
Entertained. It worked out.
I came out of it entertained. It didn't feel like 3 hours to me. Even on second watch, it didn't feel 3 hours, and that is impressive.
I had to go to the bathroom really bad about halfway through. It really felt like 3 hours for me.
I fasted.
It got really difficult for a second.
I didn't drink a lot leading up to it.
I did the same thing for the first hour and a half. I thought I was gonna be in good shape, and the last hour and a half, like the last hour,
looking at water the whole movie.
Yeah, the last hour actually was really starting to get difficult for me. But as far like the technical side of things and the visual side of things gets like an 11 out of 10 for me. The story wise gets like a 6.5 out of 10 for me. And so like overall, this movie kind of lands about an 8 for me.
It's definitely high up there for me. I would say 8 or 9. I would say I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, so I would say a 9 out of 10 for me. I think this
will show up as like one of my top films of the year when we do our show next week.
I think it's annoying to me that people want to hate on this film. If you're not a fan of Avatar, that's fine. If you're not a fan of James Cameron, that's fine. I'm not trying to convince you that it is. But anybody with a straight face trying to say that this bombed or trying to say this is a flop or anything like that, when it's crossed 1.1
clearly not
in 2 weeks, you're insane. You're insane, and you sound insane. And not to mention, there was and again, this is stupid. This is the internet. There was a person on TikTok who I like, but I was irritated by their post, who was like, this film was supposed to make $2 billion on opening weekend, and it only made $135 million. No one ever said that. What are you talking about? And everybody was like, yeah, it sucks. Screw this film. It was, the first film the first film made $75 million in opening weekend. It took them, what it was like 15, 16 weeks plus the additional re-releases to get to the 2.9 million that it currently is at. And there's nothing in the next few weeks to really challenge Avatar. So the fact that it's already crossed $1 billion, it's already the third or fourth highest film in 2022. It's going to be fine. And they've already filmed 3. So we know 3 is coming out. But, it's fine if you don't like it. But I just don't like the hate campaigns. Like I don't. I there's films that I don't like. I don't go, I'm not like making my whole essence to hate on Thor: Love and Thunder. We gave our review. I told you I didn't like it, and we moved on from it. I didn't make it my
I will.
whole.
I did. I fucking hate that movie.
Yeah,
That's
but
a bad example. That's a bad
make
example
it
for me.
your sole existence to hate on that film.
No, no, but I could have. If I didn't have it, if I
It's
didn't have
definitely
enough
not
going,
good.
if I didn't already have enough going on, I could have fucking gone that route with that movie.
Well, we'll talk about that next week, probably in our worst films of the year. But
top of the list, easy. Spoiler alert.
But I think a lot of people were wondering, after 13 years, could Avatar still make a dent? And it's definitely made a dent. How big of a dent? We'll see in the near future. Will they make 5? This could be an incredible franchise if it makes 5 films. But at least we'll get a trilogy, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And we're living in a world where things get canceled all the time, and we just never get. I hate it because I get so invested in so many TV shows, and they're just done. But I think, especially now that Avatar is under Disney, Disney likes controlling the biggest franchises and IPs in the world. I doubt they're going to let this go, but we'll see.
As long as they leave James Cameron alone to make what he wants to make, I'm on board. But
yeah, but 20th Century Fox was in a lot of debt. Maybe that was part of the problem.
Yeah, but they're seeing a payoff.
They're definitely seeing a payoff.
Like, if anything, this should be assigned to him is to let the creator do what the creator wants to do and don't get involved. But
I mean, what does Wakanda Forever? What is their global box office? Wakanda Forever.
Terribly sure.
Because that's still in theaters. Global box office. That can't be right. Box office mojo.
800 million worldwide.
Yeah, 806 million, 0.8 million. They're still in theaters. And that's how much they've made since November 11th. Avatar 2 broke the $1 billion ceiling in 14 days. I think Disney's going to probably want to invest in future installments, especially if James Cameron can, not have to invent the wheel every time and spend a decade between. So, yeah.
Well, until the next one comes out, or until next week, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. Hit the like button if you like this video. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Don't forget to hit us up in those comments down below. Let us know what you guys thought of Avatar 2. Let us know what your guys' holiday movie traditions are. Be a part of the conversation. We'll answer those comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. We're pretty random and sporadic, so you're going to want to get a heads up. Like, find us on social media at Nerfherders Assemble or at Nerfherders Crew on Twitter. Until next time, have a good one.
See you in the new year.
Peace.